Hello, everyone, and welcome to the November 2025 educational webinar co-hosted tonight by the Essex branch and the Kent branch of Ontario Ancestors. I'm Cindy Robichaud, and Angela Churchill is also here to assist. Thank you for joining us tonight. We do have a couple of housekeeping items. This presentation will be recorded and will be available on both branch YouTube channels. Your microphones and cameras have been turned off, but we welcome your questions and your comments. Recently, Zoom made some updates to the chat feature. So if you hover your mouse over the bottom of the screen, you will see on the bottom of the bar the chat icon like it's always been before. If you click on here, a chat box will open up. But for some, this might look new. This is where the update was. So it may still say everyone, or it might say main chat, or you might have a new chat button. If you see none of these, you may need to enable it. So at the top of that chat box where it says, where you can see right now, it says meeting for Cindy, there'll be another little blue icon that looks like a piece of paper with a pencil. So if you don't see anything, click on it and it should open up the new chat button. So this is where you can ask your questions. Click on the new chat and choose either Angela or myself, and you can send a message to us and we will get to your questions at the end of the presentation. Hopefully that's clear as mud. So for anyone joining us for the first time, let me tell you a little bit about Ontario Ancestors. Ontario Ancestors, also known as the Ontario Genealogical Society, is a nonprofit registered charity which was founded in 1961. It is the largest genealogical society in Canada with a mission to encourage, bring together, and assist those interested in the pursuit of family history and to preserve Ontario's genealogical heritage. Be sure to visit the website to learn more about the resources and support available to assist you in your family history research. Ontario Ancestors has over 30 branches and several special interest groups all across Ontario. An Essex branch and the Kent branch are included in these. The Essex branch family history collections are housed at two different locations. The Essex branch collection is housed at the Windsor Public Library at the Local History Branch on Sandwich Street in Windsor. And then the Franco-Ontarian collection is housed at the former, I'm going too far, at the former Maryvale Convent on Prince Road in Windsor as well. So visit the Essex branch website if you want more details and for directions to these collections. The Kent branch family history collection is held on the second floor of the Chatham-Kent Public Library in Chatham, and we're open Fridays and Saturdays from 1 till 5. We always like to connect with people interested in genealogy and local history. You can connect with us at these emails. You can also join each branch Facebook group, which has hundreds of people who are interested in genealogy and local history. So it's a great resource. We also have very comprehensive websites with lots of resources for both our branch members, but also for the general public. So be sure to take a browse around the websites, and we look forward to connecting with you. So now for tonight's presentation, the Essex Kent Mennonite Historical Society with our guest speaker, Jill Nicholson. Jill has been the curator of the Essex Kent Mennonite Historical Association. That's a mouthful.
ECMA. We call ourselves ECMA.
ECMA. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Since 2018 and is the vice president of the Leamington Mercia Historical Society as well. You are busy. She is a retired librarian who championed local history during her library career. She spearheaded the local history digitization project at the Leamington Public Library in the 1990s. That was early.
It
She
was.
organized, yeah, that's early to get started with that. She organized several displays for Leamington's 150th anniversary in 2024 and conducted two Jane's walks on local Mennonite and Leamington's history. Welcome, Jill. We will now pass it over to you and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There we go. Here we are.
Perfect.
And I was thank you for inviting me tonight. We've been really looking forward to this. What I plan to do is to start with a bit of history of the Mennonites, going back to the 1500s. Then I'll talk about the waves of migration to North America. Then a bit about the history of the Mennonites in the Leamington area, Essex, Kent. And then we'll take a tour of the resources and the artifacts here at the Archives and Museum. It's not going.
I see your mouse kind of like just going around the screen.
Yeah, sorry, but I'm hitting and it's not going. So let me just see. Try that. No, it is not going.
Try your forward and backwards buttons. Sometimes that works.
There we go. Now I
Yay.
decided. It was just sitting there. Okay. Um, Now, first, I'm going to talk about the Mennonite history in Europe. And the Mennonites that came to Essex, Kent are the descendants of Dutch and North German Anabaptists who settled in the Vistula Delta in West Prussia in the 1500s. And in 1763, Catherine the Great issued a manifesto inviting all Europeans to come to I can't see part of my screen here. So how can I get that? Okay. There we go. Thank you. And to settle various pieces of land in New Russia, which is now southern Ukraine. The Mennonites from Prussia signed an agreement in 1789 with Crown Prince Paul to settle the Molochna region starting in 1803. The Mennonites were allowed special provisions for education, exemption from military service, and religious freedom. By 1870, about 9,000 Mennonites had immigrated to Russia, mostly to Molochna and Khortytsa colonies, with almost 45,000 as the population increased. Now, I wanted to show you this map. It is a current map of the southeast corner of Ukraine. And on top, they've put on where the Khortytsa and the Molochna colonies were. You can see here, in this area is right in the area of the major activity in the Russian-Ukrainian war. You can see there that in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see Mariupol. And also just above that, you can see Donetsk. And that area from the news last night is almost ready to be taken over by the Russians. So this area is, is a quite concern to the Mennonites because this was their former home. By 1870, the Russian government could no longer justify special treatment of the Mennonites as nationalism in Central Europe grew. In 1871, delegates were sent to St. Petersburg with a petition to continue the exemptions, but failed. The most conscientious Mennonites decided to seek immigration options, which included North America. The more progressive groups immigrated to Kansas in the United States, and the more conservative groups from the Kleine Magenda chose to go to Manitoba and Saskatchewan, where they were promised privileges like those in Russia and established Mennonite-style villages. These groups eventually became known as the Old Colony Mennonites. Now, there was also a second wave of migration, and that happened at the time of World War I, where the Mennonites in Russia had become very advanced socially and economically. Many large agricultural estates and businesses were established. The Mennonites' agricultural and industrial products were highly regarded. The collapse of the Russian provincial government was devastating to much of Ukraine. Both the Red and White armies confiscated food and livestock. Nestor Makhno's anarchist army targeted the Mennonites because they were thought to be more advanced and wealthier than the average Ukrainians. And there's a picture there of Makhno. After the Russian Revolution, Mennonite communal property was confiscated for collectivization. The land and government control was given to outside peasants. Religious freedoms and military service exemptions for Mennonites were restricted in 1918. In 1920, a delegation of Russian Mennonites, including figures like A.A. Friesen and David Taves, was sent to explore immigration settlement options in Canada, Mexico, and the United States. Canada was the only country that consented to their immigration, leading to the formation of the Canadian Mennonite Board of Colonization to assist the 20,000 Mennonites who arrived between 1923 and 1930. Travel loans were arranged for the Mennonites by the Canadian Pacific Railroad. And there was also a very small third wave that came after World War II. So now we come to the arrival of the Mennonites. And they first reached Essex, Kent in 1924 and lived in the communities of Kingsville, Leamington, Wheatley, Olinda, Coatsworth, Harrow, Windsor, and Pelee Island, mainly as farmers at that time. And as you can see, for the past couple of years already, the Mennonites have been celebrating their 100th anniversary of arrival. I'm going to now focus on the two major institutions that were very important to the Mennonites: the establishment of churches and the establishment of schools. So the Mennonites first worshipped in homes and halls, and then used the Ruthven United Church starting in 1925. The Essex United Mennonite Church was established in 1929, and the first church was built on Oak Street in Leamington in 1932. As the Essex Kent Mennonite community grew, more churches were established, which reflected the various beliefs of the faith, including Old Colony and Evangelical. The Mennonite Brethren built a church building on Elliott Street, Leamington, over a period of 4 months, which opened for Christmas services in 1939. They have now moved to a location on Talbot Street East and are known now as the Meadowbrook Church. The North Leamington United Mennonite Church was established in 1954 on Mercy Concession 6, when the Oak Street Church became too small for the size of the congregation. In 1961, the Faith Mennonite Church was established on Shirk Street in Leamington. A group of Mennonites wished to worship in English instead of the German services that were held in the United Mennonite Churches. Their church building was erected in 1964. Now, I also talked about education, and the Mennonites, especially the United Mennonites, were very interested in establishing a high school that upheld their beliefs. So the United Mennonite Educational Institute began as a Bible college in 1944 and expanded with a permanent building to a grade 9 and 10 secondary school in 1946, and later grades were added in 47. It is located on Mercy Concession 6, right across from the North Leamington United Mennonite Church. And today it is now more broadly a Christian high school. The Mennonites have also been very successful in the business world. They've established profitable greenhouse and canning operations, and they've also been successful in the fabricating, retail, and service industries. And the photo there is of the Unifab fabricating business, which is on Highway 77, Leamington. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Acoma history. A joint history committee was established by the Leamington Mennonite Church, and the North Church in the early 1970s to preserve their history. The committee published a picture of the church family in 1984 and became actively involved in organizing programs and preserving artifacts. In the mid-1980s, the members of the committee felt the need to expand so that all Mennonites of the two counties could be represented and established the Essex Kent Mennonite Historical Association, and it became incorporated in May 1st, 1987. The board of directors started a plan for the establishment of a permanent archives and heritage center. In 1992, ACMA entered into an agreement with the Leamington Mennonite Home and Apartments to purchase 950 square feet of space for $80,000 spaces. The Heritage Center was established on the second floor of the Gardens Apartments at 31 Pickwick Drive, and a space on the first floor where I am tonight houses the archives. Now we'll do a little bit on the Mennonite Center itself. So here's an outer view of the center, which is in the middle of a Mennonite seniors complex, and that includes the Leamington Mennonite home, a retirement home, apartments, condos, and townhouses. So all of Pickwick Drive and part of Garrison are included in that area. So just do a little bit of a tour. When we come into the center, we come into the lobby, and what you see in the middle of the screen there is a map showing the migrations of the Mennonites. We've talked a little bit about the ones going to Ukraine and to North America, but Mennonites also went to Mexico and South and Central America. This one is a little bit hard to see, and I apologize, but this talks a little bit about the birth of the Anabaptist movement, and which is what the Mennonites are part of. And Anabaptists believe in adult baptism as opposed to child baptism, and that's one of the main tenets of their faith. We also have a lot of different artifacts, and they're all throughout the center. This one shows a few things. We have the desk and the medical kit from a doctor that practiced in Leamington, a family doctor. We also have a photo on the top right, which is people waiting for the train to start their trip from Ukraine to Canada. And we also have right beneath it an aerial view of the Pyramid Canners, which was at the north end of Victoria Avenue in Leamington. We also have a lot of artwork. The Mennonites are a very arty people, and we have a lot of different representative paintings from many different people. Though the print at the bottom left is some of You and Me, which was done by local artist Harold Burton, and on the far left there is a representative of the clocks that were made in Ukraine by the Mennonites. And here's some more artwork. On the bottom left, we have a picture of a man and wife, and those pictures were taken in Ukraine. I wanted to talk a little bit about this particular painting, and I'm sorry it's a little bit hard to see, but it's done by a local man named Henry Pauls. And I just wanted to get the information up on here. Henry Pauls was born in Malachna in 1904. And while he was there in Ukraine, he studied to be a teacher. And in addition to that, he was also interested in art. So he also studied art under an artist. And when the time came in the 20s when there was hard and the Mennonites decided to immigrate, the Pauls family moved to Sunningdale, Saskatchewan to start farming. However, in Sunningdale, things did not go well, and the farm failed. So they decided to move on to Leamington and to buy a farm, and also to come because the educational opportunities were better. And the farm he bought, which was in Blythewood, had cash crops, including tomatoes. And when he retired from that, he decided to, he felt actually compelled to write the history of his childhood, and also to create not only stories, but paintings to illustrate the story. So this one that we see here is a painting of a very successful agricultural estate. And you can see the house in the middle is very representative of the Mennonite style, where the barn is attached to the house. This one's a little bit different because the house is at a 90-degree angle. Most of them were like a long house and all straight across. One thing you will see there on the left there on the little chest of drawers there is a samovar. And the samovar is a Russian tea maker. And many people brought those samovars in their chest when they came to Canada. And I marvel at that. They're quite large and quite heavy, but they were very valued into the little trunk that they brought with them. At the center, we also do a lot of activities like travelogues, history talks, and book launches. And we're going to be starting to do some of those next week. We're going to have a couple in November, then start back again in January. One thing we have upstairs, we're going upstairs now to the museum. And the gentleman that's pictured here, his name is Jake Lane. And he came from Ukraine, and his family, just like the Pauls family, settled in Sunningdale, Saskatchewan. And like Mr. Pauls, Jake Lane was also compelled to show his family history, but the history of Saskatchewan. So what he did is we created all these miniatures of his farm. And the backdrop was also painted by him. And this was originally in his basement. And when he moved, he donated this all to the center. Here you can see some of the miniatures that he did. You can see that there is a horse threshing machine. You can see a summer kitchen. You can see the woodworking shop, and you can also see the grist mill. The building on the right is their second family home that they built while in Sunningdale. And there he is, Mr. Lane, showing off the original house with the sod roof. Mr. Lane also did miniatures of the two churches that I talked about. That is the original version of the Leamington United Mennonite Church on Oak Street. The picture I showed you before had the addition on it. This was what it looked like originally. And here's the North Church and what it looked like originally before it had its additions. We also have a lot of artifacts. You can see some of them are more general pioneer ones. You can see like the horse yoke and that kind of thing. On the bottom left, you can see a model of one of the ships that the people came over on from Europe. We have a lot. We also have someone who was a cobbler, so we have all their cobbling equipment. And again, you can see a samovar there. And this one too has some other things. On the top right, you can see sideways, this looks like the little shovel. That is a watermelon crusher because they wanted to make watermelon syrup, which is a typical Mennonite treat. We also have, I'm sorry, that's not the greatest of photographs, but that we do have a lot of linens that were done. We have embroidery. We have a lot of beautiful knitting, very, very fine knitting. As well, we do have a few things that are embroidered in the Russian-Ukrainian style. Here we have the archives, and this is where I am sitting today. And we have this is a rotating display because we're upstairs. Sometimes it's hard for people to get up there. We have rotating displays from some of the items that are upstairs. One thing we do have in the archives is this really interesting box wardrobe. And although it does have a veneer of kind of like wood, you can see that the backing is actually boxes of shredded. And this was done during the Depression, when there wasn't a lot of money and they needed furniture. So this was the way, a very creative way of how to create furniture. Some of the collections we have here in the archives, we have quite a number of family histories. We have church directories, registers, and bulletins. We have many Mennonite histories, which focus on the Russian Mennonites. All the yearbooks from UMEI. We have Mennonite-focused periodicals, files on local Mennonite organizations like UMEI, the Etc. Shop Thrift Store, Mennonite church music books, photographs, videos, DVDs, music, and sermon cassettes, and also many maps of the various Ukraine colonies. One thing we have in the archives is kind of interesting are these music books. Now, because a lot of people couldn't read music, they decided to use their Ziffern system or their cipher system. And it's a music number system. And I've put on here the key of C. You can see how the numbers correspond to a note. And this was a fairly new acquisition that was given to us by the family of Peter J. Dreecher, who was the music director of the North Church. We recently also got the complete works of Menno Simons. Menno Simons was one of the founder of the Mennonite faith. Obviously, that's how it got its name. And this is all of his writings. I think this is from the 1880s. We also have a number of Mennonite church records, such as the registers for the Leamington United Mennonite Church, and that has births, deaths, and marriages. Here's a couple of examples of the family histories and stories. The one on the left is a fairly old one, and that is talking about the Weems family. The one on the right is one that was published in the last year or so, and it was done by the daughter of John J. Weems, and it's his story in his own words. And we had a book launch for that last year. We also have some publications. The one on the left and right are books, and they were done a while ago. But we have, talking about, we've got the 80th anniversary book, plus a general history of the Mennonites in Essex and Kent counties. We also do twice a year our newsletter called The Historian, and the fall one is almost ready. I just have to do some proofreading. It'll be ready to go. And we do put that on our website, and we also have paper copies available. And we also have our website. We have digitized versions of the publications. Right now, unfortunately, that's not working properly. We hope to get that up and running soon. We also have a photo album with memories of Pelee Island and all the farming that was done and all the fun that people had there. Grandparent stories, which are UMEI students interviewing seniors on their younger lives. And also we have some church information. At the end, here, almost at the end of my talk, we also have an entranceway. Then we've got photographs of the various areas of the Mennonites that came here. So we have some of Ukraine, some of Leamington, some of Reeser, which was a settlement in Northern Ontario. And unfortunately, the Mennonites were sold some land that was not very productive, and that failed, and they came back to this area. And also some from Mexico, and there's some pictures of Mennonites in Mexico. Outside, we also have a Millennium Garden, and it was designed in 2000 and commemorates the arrival of the Mennonites to Essex, Kent. And we have a number of very dedicated garden volunteers who keep everything looking lovely. One thing we have two oak trees from Cortizza, and the Cortizza tree was about 700 years old and it's been dead now for about 30 years. But it was a meeting place for the Cossacks. And then when the Mennonites came to the area, it became a very important and sacred place, a meeting place for the Mennonites. And so people have, if they've gone to Ukraine, people have brought back acorns and have planted them. So here's one that was an acorn that was donated by Victor and Helen Hubert. And there's contact information. And that is the end.
Okay. So you're telling me those trees grew out of an acorn that somebody brought
Yes,
back?
ma'am. Yes,
Oh
yes,
my
ma'am.
goodness. Wow. That's amazing.
Yes, and we have two trees even. So
Wow.
I
That's really amazing.
mhm.
That's those trees are very determined.
Yes, I said if a tree lasted 700 years, it was a determined tree to start off with.
Wow, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Um, so there are a couple questions. So
Yeah.
when the families immigrated, did they practice like other groups like wave immigration where, the male or a father or a brother would come over, kind of check things out, try to find a place, try to get some place, and then, some of them worked and sent money back for the rest of the family to come over, or did they all just come?
They mainly all just came just because they were being persecuted and it was dangerous to stay. A few times, a father would come over, but most of the time everyone went together. So the whole family would go. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Leaders of the communities once they were established, were
Mhm.
they mainly, was it mainly the leader of the church, or were there families that were, higher up in the social context that, led the community, or was it really basically based around the church?
It was a lot on the church. We had people, there were men that would become elders of the church. Most of the Mennonite um, pastors in the beginning were not formally trained. They were called to do it. So they were the ones then it had they were the respected people of the community.
Okay. And then you mentioned about them when they did come over, a lot of them were farmers. So would you say that they basically were just employed and then they worked their way up and they saved money to buy their own pieces of property? Or did they
Yeah.
come over with monies and were able to purchase land at that time?
No, they didn't have a lot of money that came over because it was confiscated
Mhm.
um, by the Russian hierarchy. So a lot of them, especially the ones that went to Pelee Island, they were sharecroppers. And so then they worked and saved money. And then when the time came, they had enough money to buy a farm over on the mainland. So a lot of them went to Leamington or Kingsville or that area and bought their own farms.
Okay,
And
okay.
some of the ones that came over were not farmers. So they had to learn to farm because of the language barrier, they couldn't really do what they used to do, as many happens with many immigrants. So a lot of them started as farmers.
Okay, that's good. Angela, you have a couple questions or?
I had one because this seems kind of like a unique museum. Are there similar kind of museums at other settlements, like across North America or other places where groups settled?
Yes, yes, there are a few. There's one in there's one in BC. There's one. There's several, couple in Manitoba. There's one in Winnipeg, or Winnipeg, Manitoba, and there's one in Waterloo as well. So those are the main ones. There's Abbotsford, I believe, is the one that there is in BC. So there's a few.
Okay.
Right. So are people, your center, is it open for people to come and visit and to do
Mhm.
research or, so I know
Yep.
the museum probably it is open to people, but if people want to research, like do you have computers there or databases, or they can go through the filing cabinets? Like how would somebody come
Yeah.
in, or
Yeah.
would they let you know they wanted to come in first and send you an email, or is? How's
Yeah,
that work?
well, I'm only here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning, so you really need to make an appointment. So I'm here. But most definitely, anybody wants to come and do research, we're very happy to have them come.
Okay, that's great. And now you mentioned some of the collections that you have and some of the materials. Now, are you digitizing any of those at any point for preservation purposes or for access people who maybe can't travel to you?
That's the plan. I know the board is working towards that right now. So that's one thing we hope to get done very soon. And we have a few things online, but there's a lot more that we want to put on.
Right. What would you say? There was a question. What is your earliest artifact, if you know?
Okay, let me see. I have this. It came from, actually, I can look at it right over there. We have an old samovar that's probably from the 1880s that's made of brass, and it's been well traveled. It's looking a little sad, but I think that's one of the old things. And then also the book we have on the Minnow Simon's book as well from the 1880s. So I think the two oldest things that come to mind right now. But again,
Right.
a lot of things, we wouldn't have a lot of things that are old because people could only bring their trunks, right? So yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the things come. I'm sorry. One other thing is that very recently we got this old platter, and it was designed in Odessa, and it was made in England, and we think it's over 150 years old.
Wow.
So that was kind of neat.
So you mentioned the students doing that project with their grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that's a philosophy or that's a family history? Is that something that is imparted on the students or the youngsters, and they're to look into their family history, or is it pretty much like ours and they're not interested until they get older? Like I didn't know if that was part of their education or not.
Well, it is part of their education, and that was actually part of their studies. They had to do that. I understand they're not doing it anymore. I think since COVID, they didn't really. I think they kind of stopped it. But it was just important just to to learn more about the history and to keep that history alive. And that's one thing that I know my board is really working on is to get the young people more involved and more interested.
Right. I think that's the challenge for all of us.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter which
Yes,
group you belong to, you're trying to get them
exactly.
involved. Okay, I was writing down questions as we went. Another one was, has there been a noticeable growth or decrease in the congregations over the last few decades? As the kids grow up and they, maybe don't want to stay in that certain lifestyle, or I don't know if there's been any kind of big change that was noticeable or not. Just
I don't think so. The problem with Mennonites is that if they don't like something, they'll start their own church. So, like for example, with the Faith Mennonite Church, they started their own church because they wanted to have services in English, and the other churches only did them in German. So there's a lot of the dividing up of congregations. Also, too, a lot of the young people, as with you know any group, they've gone on and went to higher education and are working in other communities. So they've lost some of the young people. So for some of the more established Mennonite churches, like the United Mennonite churches, I think they've lost some of their congregations. Other ones have grown.
mm-hmm. Yeah, times change, right? And
Mm-hmm.
situations change and demographic change. And used to be you didn't get anywhere besides a horse and buggy, and now you can fly around the world. So I'm sure that all that has changed as well. So, Angela, is there any more questions?
Sorry, nope, not from my end.
Okay, alrighty. Okay, well, I think that what you answered all of my questions. That was
Mm-hmm.
very interesting, and it just goes to show that that overreach and the wars and things that are going on have been, it has affected every part of the world for centuries. And we have,
Mm-hmm.
all different types of, melt. That's why Canada's called the melting pot, right? Because everybody
Mm-hmm.
was coming to seek haven, and and then establish themselves. And like you had said, they've become very prosperous. And, from that worn, torn, area to come across to a new land and not know what you're expecting. Now, do you know if a lot of the families kept in contact with, anybody that was left behind, or did basically the entire family come to flee?
Yeah, a lot of them, like right now in Ukraine, there are almost no Mennonites. Some stayed until after the Second World War, and then they actually went out with the Germans because they were German speaking, and so it was kind of hard for the Mennonites because they're a peace loving people and they don't really fight, but they couldn't really. But they sort of when the Germans left Russia, when they went with them, and so then they went to Germany, and then they came over with family over in Canada. But it was kind of a difficult thing because they really didn't have one side or another, but the Germans took them on because they were German speaking.
Right. So the lesser of two evils, or trying to make the best of the situation, right?
and instead they were persecuted by the Russians, so they were not best friends with the Russians either. So
right.
yeah, so it was yeah,
it's unfortunate. All right. Well, I don't know. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with us, or
let me see.
Did you mention the little tidbit that you told me that you were going to tell everybody you were not?
Oh yes, I should tell you that I am not Mennonite at all. My family came to the Leamington area in 1815, so I'm English background. So when I came here, I had really, they hired me because they knew I was interested in history, but I had to take a crash course on Mennonite history, and so I really didn't know much about Mennonite history at all. So it's really a fascinating history that a lot of people don't know. I'm going to tell you another tidbit. We have here a thesis that was done by a master's student, and this is kind of not a very nice story. It's that during World War II, the Mennonites had only been here, for maybe 15 so many years. They were actually persecuted in Leamington, and the council at the time passed a motion to ban the speaking of German in public. So it's just, and that was something I didn't hear anything about it, so I was very quiet. But there was, even at that time, a lot of people still were being persecuted, even when they'd come to Canada, and they were, proving themselves to be, a very hardworking people. But it's just kind of shocking to me that even in Canada, they couldn't get away from that.
Right. Well, yeah. So I'm the newsletter editor for both Kent and Essex, and you say that in the article that I did for both, a little bit different, but it was the twist on the Japanese after World War II, the same type of thing. How
Yes.
They had been here for 2 or 3 generations, and they were still displaced and moved, and so yeah, it did happen, and I think it probably happened a lot more than we think.
Yeah,
And,
the Germans were not put in any camps like the Japanese or the Italians. The Italians too were also, some of them were put in camps. But the Italians in Leamington didn't really come till the 50s, so that there was, that didn't happen here. But it was just, I don't think they knew what to do with the Germans that were here. But it was quite interesting though. In all the articles that were in the Windsor newspaper and that kind of thing. Very, very interesting. So I just wanted to pass that on, that there was a very interesting time in Leamington area during the war. So.
Yeah, I think all of Canada, everyone was just nervous. And if you, were from a different, country, then that just kind of brought up a little bit of fear. And, you're right. I don't think they know what to do with them.
Yeah, and the Oak Street Church was vandalized. They had come in and they, vandalized the church and that kind of thing.
Right.
So that's just an interesting tidbit. And now today, as I said, there are so many Mennonite churches in both in Essex and Kent counties, and some of the churches that were closed, the rural churches, are now been taken over by some of the old colony churches. Okay. So they're getting a new use.
Good.
Because I know there was one in just outside of Dresden that was an old church that was taken over, and I think it was a United Church at one point. I heard last week that they might not be there anymore, but they said they're all over. And there's also a large Mennonite community in Elmer. I mean, that's not Essex or Kent, but it's in
Right.
Oxford, but close by. So that's
Right,
another
right.
big community. Yeah.
Right. Okay, good. Well, it's just a little bit of information about, a piece of history that I didn't really know anything about. And I grew up in Leamington and Wheatley.
Mhm.
So, you know about these churches and, this group of people, but you
Mhm.
don't really know anything about them. So
Mhm.
I was
And
very interested to learn,
yeah.
exactly how they came to be here, where they came from,
Mhm.
what happened, and then how they established and grew from there. So yeah,
Mhm.
this was very interesting. I'd love
Yeah.
to come for a visit, so I'll have to make a plan
Okay.
to come and
Okay.
visit. And
And one thing I also wanted to say is that the old colony people and the more progressive Mennonites all came from the same area. They came from the same colonies. But because of, some I think that when the ones that came in the ones that came in the first wave, they made their own communities and they sort of lived in an isolated
Mhm.
way. But ones that came here in the 20s, that all the farms were already established. So they had to, work with the broader community. So I think that's why they became more progressive. That's
Right,
just
more,
that's my theory.
yeah, maybe a little more assimilated into
Yes,
the
they
community.
had to become assimilated
Sure,
because
sure,
yeah.
yeah, okay. All right. Okay, well, we won't keep you any longer. We're going up to the top of the hour, so thank you so much. That was great. There was a few little glitches. It wasn't too bad. I think maybe it was your internet or whatever was kind of like pausing or skipping a little tiny bit, but that's okay. We could still hear everything that you said. So we
Oh,
definitely,
that's yeah. I noticed there was a couple of pauses and I'm right beside the router too, so I can't. So it could be this. I know sometimes the center's internet's not the best. So
yeah, technology is wonderful, isn't it? Well, it is
Mhm.
wonderful because we were able to have you in, so that it
Yes.
is wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you
Oh,
everyone else for joining on a Friday night. We appreciate it. Um, Kent does not have any present webinars or presentations in December and January, or February, and Essex does not have any in December and January, and they're back in February. So be sure to check out both of the websites to find out what's coming up in 2026. Both groups are already planning their program for the whole year. So be sure to visit their websites, jump on their Facebook groups, send them an email. Thank you everyone for joining, and we will have a good night. Say good.
thank you.
Bye bye now.
Bye.
Thanks, Joe.
Oh, no problem. Oh, it's over.
You did great.
Oh, thanks. I was getting so nervous. I don't know
No,
why, but anyway, I'm glad it all went as well as it could. Great.
yeah, you did
Thanks.
great.
Thanks for inviting me again.
No problem.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you for agreeing and for coming. So hopefully we'll come for a visit
Okay, no
soon.
problem.
Bye now.
Good. I look forward to it. Bye.
Great, great. Okay.